Hey guys, welcome back. This is part 8 of our Node and Express from scratch project. Now, up to this point, we've created a full CRUD application. We can create, read, update, and delete articles. But I do want to move on and add some more stuff. Eventually, we're going to get to authentication. But in this video, what I want to do is set up a couple things. I want to set up messaging, flash messaging, so that, for example, if we add an article and it redirects us after we submit it, I just want a message saying like article created or article updated and so on. We can also handle error messages. So I want to do that, and we're going to use something called Express Messages for that. And it's pretty easy to implement. We just have a little bit of middleware that we have to add. It has a couple dependencies such as connect flash and also this right here, Express Session. This obviously handles the sessions in Express, and then Connect Flash handles storing those messages. All right, so we need to set up those two things as well. And then I also want to add some validation. Now we do have, if we look in our model, our article model, we set these fields to required, so it won't submit, but it's not elegant at all. It's just going to basically just show us a message in here, which isn't what we want. We want it to display on the clients, in the application. So we're going to use Express Validator for that, and that's pretty easy to set up as well. And then the last thing I want to do is, if we look at our app.js, this is the entry file, and it's full of routes for articles, for adding and editing articles and so on. And I want to clean that up a little. What we'll do is create a routes folder, and then we're going to use the Express router to transfer all of our routes here into a file called articles.js inside the routes folder. And this will just clean it up a little bit. And if we want to add more resources, like, I don't know, maybe pages or to-dos or any resource at all, any model, we're going to have to create routes for it so we can have a separate file for that. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing. So let's start off by just installing all these modules. I'm just going to stop the server from running, and we're going to do an npm install -- save, and we want express messages. We want express session, connect flash, let's see, and express validator. I think that's all. So let's go ahead and run that. That'll get those things set up. All right, now what we want to do is start to add the middleware. Okay, so we're going to go to app.js, and let's go down to right under where we put the public folder, and we're going to go to Express. Actually, the first thing we want to include is Express Session, because that's needed for some of this other middleware. So it should have it on here. We want this right here, this app.use, and then passing in that session function. So let's copy that, and we'll say Express Session middleware. Paste that in. So this secret, you can put whatever you want here. I'm just going to leave the default. And resave. If you want to know what this stuff means, you can look through here. Let's see. Let's search for resave. So this forces the session to be saved back to the session store, even if the session was never modified during the request. Okay, so that's what the resave does. Save uninitialized forces a session that is uninitialized to be saved to the store. It's uninitialized when it's new but not modified. Okay, so this is just standard configuration. Now we're going to also add some middleware for Express Message. So let's go there, and we want to go down to, let's see, where is it? Oh, this right here. So Express 3+, that's what we want. And we're just going to put that, let's put a semicolon there, and we'll say Express Messages middleware. All right, so this is basically setting a global variable called messages to the Express Messages module. Okay, it's also requiring connect flash, and that's one thing we need to do is add the requires up here. I should have did that first. So let's bring in Express Validator. Okay, so that will be Express-Validator. And we want to bring in flash, set that to require express flash, connect flash. All right, and then we also want to bring in session, and that's going to be express session. All right, and the messages we're actually bringing in down here. We're setting this variable and we're requiring it here. So next thing we're going to need is the express validator middleware. So let's go to the GitHub page and go down to right here, middleware options. We're just going to grab this thing here. All right, so we shouldn't have to change any of this stuff. So let's save that. I'm not going to explain every line of the middleware. Honestly, I don't know what every single line means. I just know that we need to have this. All right, so now that we have that stuff set up, let's work on the express messages. So I'm going to go back to the GitHub page here. Now when we want to call a message, we can just do request.flash. We can add in a type and then the actual message. But we need to make sure that this can render in our Pug templates. Now on this page here, it refers to Pug as Jade because that's what it used to be called. Now you can do this to output the messages, but it's gonna look like this type of HTML. All right, so it's gonna have the UL with the class of info. It's very hard coded. What we want to do is we want to create a custom template because we're using Bootstrap. And we want to wrap every message in an alert, okay, in a div alert. So we're going to go to our views folder and let's create a new file in here and we'll call it message.pug. And this is going to be an include, okay, so it's just going to be part of the template that we can just bring into our main layout. And then if we look over at the documentation, we need to do something like this, okay? So it's going to say each type because we want to be able to add different types, whether it's an error or a success message, because we want the output to be different. Success messages should be green. They should have a green background, and then, you know, red ones will have a red background. All right, so we're not going to use this exact code right here, but it's going to be similar. So let's say messages. I hate when it does that. Okay, so messages, and we're going to indent, and we're going to say each type in object.keys, and then we're going to wrap messages. All right, so we're just doing what it says right here. Okay, now we don't want a UL, so we're not going to use that. And now we're going to loop through the messages. So each message in messages, and then we want to pass in type. Oops. All right, and then we're going to have a div, and this div is going to have a class of alert. And then you guys have probably worked with alerts in Bootstrap. You know, if you do -danger, it'll be red. If you do -success, it'll be green. So we want this to be dynamic so that we can change it on the fly. So we're going to concatenate in here type, okay, and that's going to be passed in. And then we just want the actual message, so we're going to spit that out in a variable. Message. So let's save that, and then we need to add it to our layout. We're going to put the messages right above the block content here. So we're going to go right here, and if we look over on the documentation, we need this right here. All right, now we want to change this to the name of our template, which I called message. Okay, and then we'll save that. So now we should have a custom template. So let's go over to app.js and go to where we submit an article. Okay, if we go to add article, oh, we get an error. Oh, I didn't start the server. Okay, so when we add an article, remember it goes to our post route, which is this right here, post articles add. And we want to go to where we redirect after everything is okay, you know, after we submit the article. and we're going to say request.flash, and then the type, which is going to be success, and then the actual message, and we'll say article added. Alright, so let's see if that works. So let's go title, we'll just say test article submit. Okay, so that didn't work. And you know what I think it may be is the session middleware. Yeah, right here. So this isn't exactly what I had in my when I was creating this. So I had save uninitialized to true, and I had resave also to true. So let's try that. And then I didn't have this cookie value here. So let's see if that works. I'm also going to clear my cache with Control F5 just in case. And then let's go ahead and try to add another one here. So let's just say another article, say John Doe, and submit. There we go. Okay, so it was the session middleware. You want to save resave or set resave to true, and we get article added. And then I'm just going to add it to the update function as well, or the update route, which is, let's see, post to edit articles edit ID, and I'm just going to put right here request.flash, and it's as easy as this now if we ever want to do any kind of messaging. If you want it to be an error, you want to do danger, because that's the Bootstrap class, to give it a red background. Success is green. Okay, and we'll just say article updated. So now that we have messaging set up, let's go ahead and set up some validation. So if we go to add an article and we leave all these blank and we try to submit, if we look over at the console here, it says message path body is required, author is required. The reason it's doing that is because in our model, that's what we set these to required. But you'll see on the front end, this is a horrible experience. It just hangs. It doesn't do anything, and it's not what we want. So we're going to use Express Validator to fix this. So let's go over to our app.js and go to where we submit the add article form, which is going to be the post request to articles add. All right, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to set some rules. So right here, let's do, we can say request dot check body, okay, and then we're going to check for an input with the name of title, and then we want to set the message that this will say if this doesn't validate correctly, and we want to say title is required, and then we want to set the rule, which is going to be not empty. Okay, so we're saying that the title field can't be empty. And if you want to look at all the different types of validation, if you go to the documentation, you can see you can make sure that something is an array or it is an integer. You can even what the hell is this called? Chain. You can chain different validations as well. You can also create custom sanitizers and custom validations as well. So there's a lot you can do with this, but we're going to keep it very basic. So we just want to add this rule for all three. So title, author, and body. Alright, so those are all required. Now what we need to do is we need to get the errors, if there are any. And for that, we're going to set a variable called errors, and we're going to set it to request.validation errors. Alright, and then we want to check to see if there are any. So we'll say if errors, oops, and then we also want to have an else. Now, if there are errors, all we want to do is re-render the template, so the add article template right here. So we'll say res.render. Okay, and this is going to be add article. And then we want to pass along the errors that we get from here. So we'll say errors and set that to the errors variable. Now, as it is, if we look at where we actually load the page here, we're passing in a title called add article. Now this isn't necessary. You could just as well put the text add article inside the template, but I'm just going to keep it, but we need to make sure we add it here as well, or it'll just be blank. Okay. And then let's see, if everything goes okay, then we just want to do what we've been doing. So we're going to grab all of this and cut it and put it inside of the else. All right, and then we'll save. And then if we go back here and reload and we submit, it doesn't let us, which is what we want, but we also want to have messages telling us what's wrong. So for that, we're going to go to the layout, and let's go right here. And first thing we want to do is we want to check to see if there are errors. So let's say if errors, then we want to loop through them. So we're going to say each error I in errors. Okay, and then for each one we're going to have a div, and it's going to have a class of alert and alert danger. Okay, we can hard code this class because an error is always going to be red, so we want the alert danger class. And then we simply want to output the error, and this is actually an object. We want the MSG value, which will be the actual message. So let's go ahead and save, and let's reload. Actually, let's just resubmit, and now you can see we have an error for each field. If I fill in the title and submit, it just says author and body is required. All right, and just to test it out, let's just say article 123. Submit, and there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete these. Okay, so now we have validation. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to clean up our code a little bit and put all of our article routes into a separate file. So what we'll do is create a new folder, and we're going to call it routes, and in here we're going to create a file called articles.js. Alright, now we need to bring in the express router. There's no separate module that we need to install or anything, it's included by default. So let's say express equals require express, and then we're going to create a variable called router and set that to the express.router. Okay. Now let's go to our app.js, and we're going to get all the routes except for the home route, okay, because we're going to keep that separate. Anything that has article slash is going to go in this file. So let's start here, go all the way down to here, and we're going to cut it. And let's go into back into our articles.js and paste all that in. Now, when we're using the router, we actually need to call router.get or .post and so on. So let's change all of these to router dot instead of app dot, because it doesn't know what app is in this case, in this file. Okay. And also, since we're doing this, we're going to set anything that goes slash articles slash something, I want to refer to this page. So in our app.js, we're going to first bring in the route file. So let's say let articles equals, and then we want to point to that file. Okay, so we want to go, let's see, dot slash routes slash articles. And then we can simply say app.use, and we'll say for anything that goes to slash articles is going to go to that file. Okay, so let's save that and go back over here. And now since that's going to go articles slash and then anything in here, we want to get rid of the slash articles here. All right, and there's also an issue because some of these have article and some have articles. So all of these routes will have to change to articles. Any links that are pointing to any of these, we're going to add an S2 if there isn't one. But for now, let's just get rid of all these slash article Okay, because like I said, everything's rerouted to this file. Alright, so we'll save that. And actually, one more thing we need to do is make sure that we can access the router from outside. So to do that, we say module.exports equals router. So let's go ahead and save that. Oh, one more thing. We need to bring in the model, because when we're using the model, for instance, right here, it doesn't know what article is. So just like we did in app.js, if we go up here, we're going to grab this. All right, and we'll just say bring in article model. Now, this needs to be different because we're now in a routes folder, so we need to go out of the routes folder into models. So we'll do .. That'll bring us out. Save, and now we shouldn't have to touch any of this. Pretty sure. Let's just double check. Yeah, it should be good. All right, so let's go back and reload. And we're getting an error. Let's see. It's actually router.use requires middleware function, but got what? Router/index.js requires middleware. Let's see. I guess we're not done with that file. Const router equals expressed dot. Oh, this has to be a capital R. Huh. That's strange. What the hell? I don't know what's going on here. Module.exports equals router. See. Let articles equals routes/articles. Oh, we need to require this. Alright, so hopefully that works. There we go. Now, if we click on one of these, we're going to get an error because it's looking for article singular /ID, and we need to change that to an S. So these links we need to change. So if we go to index pug, let's just add an S right here, and then go back and reload. And if we click on that, now it's correct. If I click on edit, we're gonna get an error because again, it's not adding the S. So let's go to the article.pug layout or view, and then add an S right here. Save it, and now edit should work. Good. Now for delete, we're actually making the request from jQuery. So we want to go to public.js main.js, and right here where it says article/ID, we just want to add an S onto that. All right, and then we should be able to delete. All right. Now if we click on add art, oh, you know what? I know what this is. I had this issue before. So if we go to our articles.js, our routes file, what's happening is when we do /articles/add, it's actually looking at this route here because this is a placeholder. So it's looking at it like this is this, or I'm sorry, add is the ID. So what we can do is just move this down to the bottom so that all of these routes get called first. All right, so let's go way down here, and we'll paste that in down at the bottom. All right, so now if we go back and we click on add article, now that route works. All right, so let me just do another test here, just make sure everything's okay. All right, let's try to edit. We'll say test1, submit. Okay, that works, and delete. And there we go. So everything is functioning. So we're going to go ahead and stop here, guys. Now we have messages, we have form validation. So I'm gonna start to look at ways to implement authentication. We'll most likely use Passport with a local strategy. Yeah, so thanks for watching, guys. If you're not subscribed, please do so, and I will see you in the next part.